Hi everyone, this is Karina, as you probably know. I'm really excited because today is going to be the first Tarot Tuesday that I do, and I really like, working with the cards in a way that's like for collective healing more than for individual healing, not more, but I think both of these practices are really important. So I'm really excited to be able to do these little lessons. But that said, Mercury retrograde is coming in 2 days, and I woke up feeling it hard. And I don't usually feel Mercury in retrograde. I literally wanted to leave the house and realized I couldn't because I have no idea where my keys are. So to give some framework to what we're working with today, I wanted to start out with 3 cards that I think are important. And I'm using the Dark Days Tarot. I don't really give readings with it. I love the art, but I think some tarot card decks are not going to be the ones that you're using with folks as much, or even with yourself, but you can appreciate them artistically. So many of you who practice tarot might know that our year is High Priestess and Justice. So with that said, I think there's a lot of energy here to work on ourselves and how we see ourselves in the context of white capitalist patriarchy, and how important it is to dismantle that and how we fit into it with our identities. So for example, I'm a white woman. I'm like pretty cisgender. I would say that, yeah, I'm cisgender, but I don't think like I'm super binary on that, but I definitely benefit from cis privilege. I think I benefit a lot of times from a lot of heteronormativity, like a hetero privilege, but I'm not actually heterosexual. So that's like a whole nother thing. And I think my identity is shaped by being in a rural area and being like queer and rural and weird. And I also deal with a lot of mental health stuff. I mean, I'm bipolar, and I'm very empathic and sensitive, so, and I have a lot of anxiety. So those things are kind of how what inform my life and my beliefs. And I think one thing that I'm always working on is how to show up better as like a white person for folks of color, especially women of color. So I think like High Priestess it's all about our higher energy, but it's also about cultivating our, our highest self and our highest being. And then when you pair that with Justice, it's to me, it's like, when you pair that with Justice, we have to merge spirituality and anti-oppression work. And this is a movement that I'm really excited about because it's something I've been interested in as, a worker in harm reduction and a community activist, and being pretty anti-government and anti-state. I really, really feel that our healing has to be collective. So I think this is a collective healing year. And then on the first day of the year, I pulled the Ace of Swords. So for me, I've been working a lot with Ace of Swords energy, and I think like what this means in the context of the High Priestess and the Justice card are that we have a ability right now to create and renew ourselves in a new power structure, but that comes from looking at our power and looking at how we can dismantle the system that tells us that when we have power, we have privilege, and therefore we can use that to leverage it over other people. So for me, as a person, a double Capricorn, I have struggled forever, and I continue to, with control issues and trying to control outcomes and trying to control other people. Sometimes in like extreme cases, I've definitely been guilty of that. So I'm getting a lot of support right now from my giant calcite. So beautiful. But I think that in the Ace of Swords year that we're in, along with Justice and High Priestess, we have to look at dismantling the idea that leadership and power has to mean having, power over other people and controlling other people. So remaining really in the Ace of Swords is important, so we don't escalate to the Five of Swords. We don't escalate to the Seven of Swords. And then once we get to the Seven of Swords, it becomes very inevitable that we're going to cycle down into that dark spiral that takes us to the Ten of Swords. But that said, we can recover. We have the ability to transform and rebirth ourselves. So whatever card we pull, wherever we end up, we don't have, that doesn't need to be like our destiny. There is no destiny. We have free will. And I think Ace of Swords is a great card for that. So I just wanted to give that background context today. And this is the first time I'm doing this. So because I gave that background context, I'm going to pull one card in this context. And because we're about to start Mercury retrograde, I think I really want to focus on, how we can take care of ourselves in this Mercury retrograde, with all of the information that I've just shared with you. The Lovers is the card that I pulled, and this is really interesting in this context because if I can share something personal, I've been thinking a lot about partnerships and community, and part of my queerness is that I never have, and at least at this point, I don't see myself working in like a traditional, like long-term monogamous relationship. I feel more comfortable in community, and I'm struggling with that in this small rural town where, I've always had this great talent for connecting one-on-one with people and building really amazing friendships. But, I don't have people in my life that feel the same way about partnerships that I do. Most of the people in my life are in partnerships. Many of them have children. And the ones who don't, a lot of them are looking for a partnership. And especially not folks my age. So I think, like, for me, the Lovers in this context is going to be a lot about building community and finding that balance and strength within ourselves. So, what I love about the Wild Unknown deck is these two birds are flying, and I like to imagine that they're going together in solidarity to find a better place or a different situation for themselves. So I think if we really reflect deeply on the Lovers, there is this sense of balance and harmony within ourselves, and a lot of times this can talk about our masculine and feminine binaries, but also I think our binaries between internal and external work. Like some people would call that the extroverted, introverted energies. And I think that's a good thing to focus on right now, is just the give and take that we have in our lives and the boundaries and the way that we celebrate and love ourselves and other people. I think that could be a really good way to look at the Lovers today. And, like sometimes it can be a partnership, but I think it's all up for interpretation. And when we're talking about the bigger context of what's going on right now collectively with healing and justice becoming, something that's really, really important in, the Trump administration, in the new incoming generation of millennials, I think. Like, I'm on the cusp between millennial and Gen X, so I don't fully relate to like either of those generations, but I relate to both of them on certain aspects. But I think it's interesting because we're looking at ways to transform our relationships to ourselves and each other. So I think looking at the lovers, you know, today as a balance, and if we want to inform that by Mercury retrograde, I think the lovers can teach us a lot about finding balance in our lives when things become really stressful, and balancing self-care with care for others. So I encourage you to think about what you can give back and what you're capable of giving back, but also really acknowledge and sit with what you're incapable of giving back. I'm gonna again give a shout out to my beautiful ritual oil. I don't even like remember everything that I put in this now, which is kind of embarrassing. It's got gold flakes, it's got Himalayan sea salt, cinnamon, rose petals, and it has some lobelia, which is a love herb. And I made this for myself as like a deep tool of self-love. And I have something very similar in the shop. It's a ritual oil. It comes with the sun, the moon, and the star. And you know, this is a practice that I think is important when we're looking at these two binaries, internal and external, and masculine, feminine, and everything that falls in between those two things. So I encourage you in this time to have your own rituals, develop something that works for you, and use that as your self-care practice and your way to like ground down and, you know, avoid the binaries, like stay on that scale, like stay really balanced. All my stellium in Libra is like really coming out lately. It's just, I feel really Libra-ish. But I think, you know, we are responsible for not only how we care for ourselves, but how we care for others. We are responsible to how we react to our triggers. And that has to be kept a lot, you know, in consideration when we are working with, you know, the High Priestess and the Justice card, and being healers and being our own healers and being community activists and workers. So yeah, that was fun, and thank you so much again for being my patron. I can't even say how much it means to me at the beginning of that month, you know, to get that money in my account. It's like transitioning to working solely for myself, and you know, maybe making the questionable decision of starting the free clinic. It's not a questionable decision because it's a wonderful project. It's a questionable decision for me financially because I could have been using that time to work part-time and have like at least a little bit of steady income, and instead I chose to dedicate myself to something that, you know, pays me a little bit sometimes but doesn't pay me a whole lot. So thank you so much, and I hope that this reading is helpful to you, and like reach out, let me know. I'm open for questions. I'm gonna work on a blog post in the next week, so I want to answer questions folks have for me, not only about my witch practice, my herbalism practice, and my tarot practice, but you can just ask me anything that you want about my life, and I think that I'll probably answer anything. Like, I can't really think of anything that I wouldn't answer. I mean, no, there's a couple of things that just came to mind. But yeah, I'm going to be writing a blog post, so please feel free to ask me any questions. It'll remain anonymous. And sending y'all love, and take care. Bye.